Welcome back to my daily breakdown of the preliminary hearing of California versus Larry Millete in the heartbreaking case of Maya Millete. This hearing was in 2023 and the trial date is March 7th, 2026. It's coming up. This is a local case for me. New episodes are dropping almost every day, so make sure you have your notification bell set up so you don't miss out. To catch up on all of the episodes, to bookmark or share the entire playlist, or to get some context if you just happened upon this video, the playlist is in order and can be found at bit.ly/mm playlist. I will spell that out for you. It's lowercase bit.ly /M hyphen capital P lowercase LAYLIST. So with that, thank you for being here again and enjoy this episode. Hi there, it's Dawn here, and I hope you're having a great day. I'm wrapping up this week with a special episode regarding the Readiness hearing that took place in the People versus Larry Millete this week. It was on October 28th, and I was able to attend it virtually. So photography and videography, even audio recording devices are prohibited in these hearings. So I am just going to report back to you in as much detail as I possibly can without violating anything. So I didn't record the video, I just took some notes. So I might request media access closer to the trial. We'll see how that goes, mostly because of my, I don't think I can attend in person for 3 months. I have health problems and other things going on. So the audio quality was not optimal, but court AV systems are not prioritized for broadcast quality sound. They're there to get court business done. They're there for the victims. They're there for the defendants. And so sometimes when we replay video that we receive, even when somebody does have permission, it's not always the best quality. So in any case, on the 28th, approximately 5 other matters were heard prior to the Maya's case, let's just call it that, which primarily took place in chambers. So that means I wouldn't have had access to that. But let me just explain how the proceedings went. So at approximately 2:05-ish, the Millete case was called. The judge immediately retired to his chambers with the lawyers. Approximately a half hour later, the judge returned to address several motions and indicated that the in-chambers discussions would be pertaining to motions in limine and briefing schedules. He instructed the attorneys to number their motions sequentially, suggesting that maybe there's going to be a considerable amount of motions and requests, which makes sense. The trial is expected to be 3 months long. Again, the trial is expected to go forward on March 9th of 2026 after many delays. I'll go through the timeline a little again at the end of this. So Larry Millete was present in court. He seemed to be wearing a navy blue jail uniform, and he was again wearing a mask. That's been his custom so far. I'm guessing that's what he'll do during the trial. One motion the judge did discuss in open court involved an objection to media presence. And it was noted, mostly for the record, by the defense that they have objected to media coverage of this case. And then there was a second motion that was more extensively argued concerning Larry Millete's request to receive letters from his children. He's currently subject to a court protective order prohibiting contact with his children. However, his counsel argued for his ability to receive only, not to reach out to his children, but to get their letters. In the past, his aunt and uncle have reportedly facilitated communications in violation of the protective order, and other irregularities had been noted. So the answer from the prosecution was pretty strong. So the prosecution contended that Mr. Millete had previously violated no contact orders, and therefore he couldn't be trusted. So why should this motion be granted? She emphasized the proximity of the trial only in 4 months from now, and that the children's presence in the home of the time of Ms. Milliete's alleged murder, citing a desire to avoid any potential risks to the trial that has been postponed many, many times. The judge concurred and denied motion Larry's motion outright. So this, to me, raised a question regarding the potential for the children to be called as witnesses and the nature of their prospective testimonies. Obviously, that will not be in camera as they are, even during the trial, as they are minors. And also was revealed in this argument that the guardian ad litem previously assigned to the children is no longer involved in the case. It's been taken off because matters have been settled as to their custody, and the no contact order has been in effect since March of 2025. In other words, the guardian ad litem, who herself was a lawyer, would have been able to monitor any communications going back and forth between Larry and his children, potential witnesses, okay, and potential witnesses for the prosecution. But without her being able to monitor those communications, that's another argument for denial of this motion. So by way of reminder, the children have resided with Mary Chris, Maya's oldest sister, since August of 2024, when a family court judge ordered their removal from the custody of Larry's parents. There's been a lot of back and forth about this. Ms. Bowles, the prosecutor in this case, stated that the children are thriving and performing well in school, which made me extremely happy, but have not expressed any desire for contact with their father, which I found interesting. And so, in other words, Larry's motion to receive letters from his children are for letters that don't exist. So that is basically what her argument was. So Ms. Bowles characterized this motion as being about Larry's interest rather than the children's. And this statement was delivered with notable emphasis. I kind of gasped. This suggests a perception of Larry as being self-serving and manipulative, potentially seeking to exert control over or intimidate key witnesses, namely his children in this case. So following the judge denial of that motion and denial of the and allowing the media to continue their access, I imagine this is one of the major news outlets, probably CBS 8 in San Diego. It appeared that the parties returned to the chambers. Nothing was said. I'm not sure. I thought it was over, but since I was in the virtual courtroom gallery, I did see that there were still people in attendance. So I hung out as long as the gallery was open. So as you can imagine, if you were sitting in the courtroom in the gallery, what this would have looked like is probably Larry, but definitely his attorney and the prosecutor and the judge would have gone back into chambers, and everybody who were spectators in the gallery would have just been sitting there. And that's basically what happened virtually too. So it appeared, and I can't be sure of this, that they were in chambers for after hours that evening, which made me kind of speculate as to what they might have been talking about. But in any case, that was the nothing I can report on, and I'm not going to speculate. But I am human, so I was kind of hopeful about some things, as you can imagine. If you want to share what you might have been hoping for, if you were sitting there waiting for them to come back out, or waiting and looking at the news the next day, you might want to tell me what you would be thinking. So the family did make a public statement on Facebook that the hearing was successful and the trial was on target to go forward. So that again is March 9th, 2026. So in about 4 months. So I would anticipate that many additional decisions will emerge from what was intimated to be numerous motions, including motions in limine and other legal requests. So let me give you a little background about what happens and why judges choose to have in-chambers hearings. Okay, so one category would be privacy. Only the judge, the attorneys, and sometimes, not always, the defendant and victims might be present. And I think that was the case on the 28th. Members of the public and the press cannot attend. So even if you had a media access pass, you would not have been able to attend that unless specifically allowed. So my guess is they would not have been in those chambers. The purpose of these hearings are typically for, as the judge mentioned in open court that day, for preliminary matters, rather like such as the motions. There's all kinds of motions, suppressing evidence, limiting evidence, that kind of thing. Settlements or plea agreements and discussions, or just procedural or administrative matters. So another reason, a layer to this, is confidentiality. Discussions in chambers are not part of the public record unless the judge orders, of course, because sensitive information like confidential evidence or personal sensitive matters are often discussed in chambers. And as to what is decided in chambers, like I said, there was about a half hour where the parties went in chambers and then they came out and had that argument over those two items, media access and the CPO. Larry wanting to receive accommodation to receive letters from his children. Everything else was back in chambers. So he did make his ruling on those two things. So he could decide something else that was discussed in chambers. He could rule on that in chambers, so we would never know. Or he might later provide a written record and a filing, but we never know. That's the thing. And sometimes the media will fight to get those transcripts released. A lot of times those fails. The in chambers are pretty sacrosanct. The sidebars, not as much, but the in chambers, yes. So that's kind of why a lot of what happened was not even available if you were in the gallery virtually or otherwise. So I'm going to quick review the delays. I get a lot of comments, which I really appreciate, and questions about why is this trial taking so long? That's often the case on many trials. So let's just, by way of reminder, I put this together for you as a visual. So Maya was allegedly murdered on January 7th, 2021. Larry was arrested on October 19th, 2021. His first appearance in court was the 21st of 2021. In California, you're not arraigned until after your preliminary hearing. The preliminary hearing was set for June of 2022. So that would have been about 8-9 months after the arrest. Larry was sitting in jail waiting for his preliminary hearing. But just before that, about 2 weeks before, his attorney, Bonita Martinez, filed a motion to state that basically Larry was not competent for the hearing. As such, they had to have a competency hearing. That didn't take place until late August of 2022, and the competency wasn't determined finally until late September of 2022. So then the preliminary hearing was rescheduled for January of 2023. So that's why it was 2 years since Maya had been last seen when the preliminary hearing actually happened. In between all of that, there were filings going on back and forth in family court and in a civil matter. Those are different courts. And so a lot of, things that were scheduled might have had to be accommodated for other appearances in those other courts. So obviously there were family court custody arguments going back and forth, starting from when Larry was arrested, probably even before that, to be honest, till October of 2023, really until August of 2024, when Maya's sister was given the custody back. So the children were going back and forth. There were also those civil cases against the police by Larry and his family members. Those were two separate civil cases. Those were then conferred to federal court. Also, just to make things even more labor intensive, let's just say Larry's attorney withdrew. Bonita Martinez withdrew. She said she wasn't getting paid. That was in October of 2023. So that was 10 months, 9 months after the preliminary hearing performance that we're reviewing on this channel in that playlist I mentioned. So there were a couple weeks when Larry didn't even have a lawyer. His new lawyer was assigned in later October, and those are the lawyers that will be representing him in his trial in March. So they've been on the case throughout. They also made some public statements about potentially suing Larry's previous attorney for fraud, all kinds of other things. That was really messy. So there's just been so many side shows with this case. So again, Mary Chris, then moving forward, it's been now 3 years since Maya's last seen. Mary Chris in August of 2024 finally got the children, temporary custody of the children. They're doing well, as we heard in this hearing, excuse me. And then there was that hearing to modify the CPO that the judge ruled, discussed a little bit in the new ruling this week. So that modification of the CPO was only March of this year, March of 2025. And so then there was no contact allowed. No longer would there be an ad litem to protect the children. Mary Chris had the children. They're doing well. Things are starting to settle down a little bit. It's taken a long time, but that's the timing of it. So then, of course, we heard the change of venue arguments that kind of went on back and forth between April to September of this year, where the judge said no change of venue would be allowed. Trial date was set again. So again, we had another trial date. So we had a trial date of July 2025, then in January 2025, and now in March of 2025. So let's see what else is there. And then, of course, the readiness hearing that I'm just reporting about today. So the final trial date is going to be March of 2026. Over 5 years at that point, it will be that Maya was last seen. So again, she was last seen in January of 2021. So let me know what you think about these reviews here. So again, the direct delays, mental competency, the evaluation, lots of defense motions, attorney changes, formal continuances for the trial, and then indirectly from the custody disputes, the civil lawsuits, family emergencies in between all that. And then also a lot of media and public pressure, because this is a really big case out here. And again, some of these continuances were officially granted, and some of them were just scheduling adjustments, but most of them were as a result of this very highly complex case. Lots of details to know about, but the most important detail is that Maya still remains missing, and her family would really love to have answers. So with that, I'm going to let you go, and we'll see you Monday for the next episode. We'll continue on with the next witness in the heartbreaking case of Maya Millete. I appreciate you being here. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching today's breakdown of the Larry Maya Millete preliminary hearing here in San Diego. I always prefer to use Maya's name and not the defendant's. In any case, this is California versus Larry Millete in the heartbreaking case of Maya Millete, who is still missing. Remember, new episodes drop every day with my insights as a local to this case. Since I'm not monetized, YouTube really doesn't promote my videos a whole ton. So if you want to make sure you catch tomorrow's episode, please like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you know as soon as it's up, or you can play it later. And if you can, please share this with someone who might be interested in following this case, especially if they're local, but anywhere around the world, to be honest, because Maya is still missing and it would help get more eyes on her case. So again, thank you for joining me. The full playlist is at bit.ly/mm playlist. And again, it's lowercase bit.ly// capital MM hyphen capital P lowercase LAY LIST. Thanks again for being here. See you later.